Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Tonight, we are opening a door that should have stayed sealed. You remember Monstropolis as a city of lights, laughter, strange creatures, and closet doors. You remember James P. Sullivan, the great blue scarer called Sully. You remember Mike Wazowski, his one-eyed best friend with the nervous voice and the impossible confidence. You remember Boo, the little girl who wandered into a world that was never meant to know her name. But every city has a lower level. Every bright factory has basements where the lights flicker. Every laugh has a scream buried underneath it. This is not the story told in safety manuals, company tour, or smiling posters pinned to the walls of Monsters Incorporated. This is the story whispered by janitors who quit after night shifts. It is the story hidden in shredded reports, locked doors, and old scare records stained with something darker than ink. This is the dark side of Monsters, Inc., long after the scandal of Henry J. Waternoose III, long after Randall Boggs vanished into the human world, and long after Sully and Mike Wazowski rebuilt the company around laughter. Monstropolis began to change. At first, nobody noticed. The lights still glowed across the skyline. The enormous power towers still hummed in the night. Children still laughed on the other side of doors, and laughter still filled the energy tanks with bright gold warmth. Sully, now the head of Monsters Incorporated, walked the factory floor every morning, smiling at the workers and clapping enormous paws on their shoulders. Mike followed beside him, holding clipboards, making speeches, and reminding everyone that a clean joke was better than a dirty scare. The new world was safer, happier, brighter. That was what they told themselves. But far beneath the laugh floor, beneath the comedy stations and door tracks and echoing pipes, there was another floor. It had no signs. It had no windows. The elevator buttons did not list it. The old scarers called it the hunger floor. It existed before Sully was born. Before Mike ever dreamed of being on a scare card. Before Waternoose had inherited the company from his father. The hunger floor was part of an older Monstropolis, one that had never cared about energy, only survival. Because long before screams powered the city, they fed something. Not machines. Monsters. Not all monsters were like Sully and Mike. Not all of them could live on steamed slugs, garbage syrup, and cafeteria casserole. Some came from old bloodlines that stretched back into the dark places beneath Monstropolis, back to caves where no light ever reached, back to swamps where bones rose from the mud, back to tunnels where mothers warned their children never to listen to voices in the walls. Those monsters needed fear, not fear as power, fear as food. It kept their hearts beating. It kept their skin from peeling off in rotting strips. It kept their teeth from falling loose into their mouths. It kept the black hunger from hollowing them out. When Monsters Incorporated changed from screams to laughter, the old ones began to starve. Nobody saw it at first. A huge janitor named Grindel stopped showing up for work. He had been a mountain of gray flesh with ropey arms and a face like a smashed grave statue. His mouth was so wide it reached almost to his ears, lined with yellow teeth as thick as broken bottle glass. The other janitors said he was sick. Then a small slime creature called Merc, no bigger than a lunchbox, was found trembling inside a vent, his transparent green skin sagging off his body like melting wax. His tiny black eyes had sunk deep into his head. He kept whispering the same words. No screams, no meat in the air, no fear. The company doctors called it a rare condition. A week later, a security guard named Braca collapsed on the west stairwell. Braca had 8 legs, a crocodile jaw, and a mane of stiff black quills that rattled when he walked. By the time they found him, his quills had fallen out, and his gums had split open around his teeth. His claws had scraped long lines into the concrete floor. He had written one word again and again. Hungry. Sully saw the reports. He read them in his office, while the city glittered beyond the glass. The first report was medical. The second was security. The third was classified and sealed with the old Waternoose crest. Mike stood on the desk, watching Sully read. His green face looked pale in the dim office light. Sully, Mike said quietly, "What is that?" Sully did not answer. The paper shook between his huge blue fingers. At the bottom of the report was an old photograph from the Scream era. The image showed a group of scarers standing in front of a black steel door. Not a child's closet door. Not one of the doors that moved through the factory on bright metal rails. This door was bigger, taller than a house. It had chains across it, each chain as thick as a monster's arm. On the front of the door, someone had carved a warning in claw marks. Do not feed after midnight shift. Mike swallowed. That's not real, he said. Please tell me that's not real. Sully turned the page. There was another photo. A room. Dark. Wet. The walls were scratched from floor to ceiling. Something huge had been kept inside it. Something with claws large enough to carve trenches through metal. At the center of the room sat an old Scream canister, cracked open, empty, covered in dried black residue. Sully read the final line of the document aloud. Fear dependency is not emotional. Fear dependency is biological. Mike's eye widened. There was a knock at the office door. Both of them turned. Roz stood there. She was small, hunched, and yellow, with her gray hair piled high and her glasses hanging low on her nose. Her lips were tight. Her eyes, usually bored and suspicious, were sharper than Sully had ever seen them. You found it, Roz said. Sully stood slowly. What is the hunger floor? Roz looked down the hall behind her, then slipped into the office and closed the door. It is why this company existed before it became a company, she said. Mike laughed once, but it came out thin and dead. Great, fantastic. That clears up absolutely nothing. Roz ignored him. There are monsters in Monstropolis who do not just scare children because it is a job. They scare because, if they do not, their bodies begin to shut down. Their organs rot. Their bones soften. Their minds turn against them. The old scare program kept them alive. Sully shook his head. Waternoose knew. Waternoose protected them, Roz said. So did his father. So did his father before him. Mike stepped backward. So what are we talking about? A few sick monsters. Roz stared at him. Hundreds. The words seemed to drain all sound from the room. Far below them, somewhere in the factory depths, something groaned through the pipes. It was not steam. It was not machinery. It sounded hungry. That night, Sully could not sleep. He sat in his apartment, staring at the closet door across the room. Years had passed since Boo had returned to her world. Years since he had rebuilt her door from splinters. Years since he had opened it just enough to hear her tiny voice say his name. Kitty. That memory had warmed him through every dark day. But now the door looked different. The shadow underneath, it seemed too black. The handle seemed to twitch. Sully told himself it was guilt. He told himself it was fear. He told himself he was imagining things because Roz had filled his head with old company secrets. Then something scratched from inside the closet. 3 slow scrapes. Sully rose. His claws flexed. The scratching came again. Not from Boo's world. From somewhere behind it. From somewhere between doors. He stepped closer. The closet door shuddered in its frame. A smell leaked through the gap at the bottom, sour and rotten, like swamp water mixed with old blood and burned hair. Sully placed one paw on the handle. The room went cold. From inside the closet, a voice whispered, Sullivan. It was not Boo. It was Randall Boggs. Sully tore the door open. Nothing was there, only coats hanging in the dark. But on the inside of the door, carved into the wood with fresh claw marks, were 3 words. We are starving. The next morning, the first child was admitted to a hospital in the human world. Her name appeared only in coded reports. She was 6 years old. She had been found in her bedroom at dawn, sitting upright in bed, eyes open, face white, unable to speak. Her parents said she had screamed for 9 minutes without taking a breath. After that, she had gone silent. Doctors said it was night terror, then trauma, then acute dissociation. The child drew pictures, door after door after door, and behind every door, teeth. Not ordinary teeth, not cartoon fangs. She drew teeth like white knives growing from gums that bled black. Teeth in rows, teeth inside mouths, teeth inside eyes, teeth stitched into palms. She drew a tall blue shape too, but not Sully, as Boo remembered him. This figure was stretched thin, its fur hanging in wet clumps, its horns cracked, its eyes empty. Underneath every drawing, she wrote the same word, hungry. Then came more children. A boy in Ohio refused to sleep and clawed at his own wallpaper because he said the wall was breathing. A girl in Osaka began screaming whenever someone opened a cupboard. She claimed a tiny wet monster with needle teeth had crawled out of her toy chest and whispered all the things she was afraid of. A child in London was found hiding beneath a sink, rocking back and forth, saying that the thing from his wardrobe had too many mouths, and that each mouth knew his name. Some children stopped speaking. Some spoke in voices that were not their own. Some became violent when placed near doors. Some were sent to psychiatric wards where the lights were never fully turned off because darkness made them convulse with terror. Therapists called it shared delusion, contagious hysteria, parasomnia clusters. Parents blamed horror films, online videos, bad food, bad luck. But in Monstropolis, the scream canisters began filling again. Not on the laugh floor. Far below it, Sully found out 3 nights later. He followed Roz through an old service elevator hidden behind a false wall in the records department. Mike came with him, though he complained the whole way down. "I just want to say," Mike whispered as the elevator sank lower and lower, "I was very happy not knowing any of this. Ignorance was working great for me. I had a schedule. I had lunch plans. The elevator lights flickered. The walls sweated. The air grew thicker and colder. Sully smelled mold, rust, and something animal. Roz stood motionless, facing forward. "Do not speak once the doors open," she said. Mike looked up at Sully. Sully looked down at Mike. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. The hunger floor stretched before them, like the inside of a dead machine. It was enormous, far larger than the laugh floor above. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. Chains hung from rails. Old doors stood in rows, but these were not bright and colorful like the ones used upstairs. These doors were warped, charred, water-damaged, scratched, and swollen. Some were nailed shut. Some pulsed as if something behind them was breathing. The walls were coated in slime. Pipes ran along the ceiling, thick as tree trunks, trembling with the movement of screams. Every few seconds, a distant shriek traveled through them, and the floor shivered. Monsters moved in the gloom. Sully had known scarers his entire life. He had seen monsters with spikes, claws, horns, scales, tentacles, tusks, eyes on stalks, mouths in strange places. But these creatures were different. They looked unfinished, sick, ancient. One was tall enough to stoop beneath the ceiling beams. Its body was thin and gray, covered in loose skin that hung in folds like wet curtains. Its arms reached almost to the floor, ending in hands with 7 fingers each. Each finger had a claw curved like a rusted hook. Its face was mostly mouth, a vertical slit running from forehead to chest, packed with massive sharp teeth. Blood dripped constantly from its gums, pattering onto the concrete in dark spots. Every time it breathed, the teeth clicked together like bones in a jar. Another monster crawled along the wall upside down. It was small, pale, and slick with yellow mucus. Its body was like a swollen grub, but it had the face of a starving old man with black button eyes and lips split open around tiny silver teeth. It licked the wall with a purple tongue, feeding on dried fear residue. A third creature sat in a corner, chained by the neck. It was round and bloated, with translucent skin that revealed pulsing organs inside. Scars crossed its belly in old white lines. It had no eyes at all, only pits that leaked black fluid, and when it sensed Sully watching, it smiled with 3 mouths at once. Mike covered his mouth. Sully felt sick. A siren moaned. A red light flashed above one of the doors. A monster stepped forward. It was a hulking female scarer named Mother Maw. She had once been legendary, though Sully had believed she retired before he joined the company. Her back was hunched beneath a shell of cracked bone plates. Her arms were thick and muscular, dragging long claws across the ground. Her face was hidden by hanging curtains of greasy black hair, except for her mouth, which opened too wide and showed layers of teeth arranged in spirals. Fresh scars crossed her throat, and every scar opened slightly when she spoke. "Door ready," she rasped. 2 smaller monsters unchained the door. It was pink, decorated with faded stars. A child's bedroom. Sully stepped forward. "Stop." Every monster on the hunger floor turned. The silence was immediate. Mike whispered, "Sully, maybe we stop from farther away." Mother Maw tilted her head. "Sullivan." Her voice was wet. The golden child of fear. The traitor king of laughter. Sully forced himself not to back away. "You cannot go through that door." Mother Maw's mouth widened. A string of dark saliva stretched between her teeth. "Cannot," she said. "Listen." She opened her chest plates with both hands. Sully heard it. Her heart, it beat slowly, painfully, like a fist striking mud. Around them, the other hunger monsters began to tremble. Some whimpered. Some drooled. Some pressed claws into their own skin as if trying to hold themselves together. "We are dying," Mother Maw whispered. "Your laughter feeds the lights. It does not feed us." Roz stepped between them. The old agreement ended. Mother Maw turned toward Roz. "The old agreement kept us alive." Sully looked at the rows of doors. "What are you doing to the children?" No one answered. That was answer enough. Sully's voice lowered. "What are you doing?" From the darkness above, another voice replied, "What we were born to do." The lights snapped on. High on a metal balcony stood Randall Boggs. He was thinner than Sully remembered. His purple skin had faded to a bruised gray. Old wounds crossed his body, some stitched with black thread, others still raw at the edges. One of his eyes was clouded. His tail twitched behind him, the end bent from an old break. He smiled, and his teeth were longer than before, sharper, stained at the roots. Mike shouted, "Randall." Randall smiled. Hello, Mike. Still one eye, still no brains. Sully growled. You were banished. I survived, Randall said. Unlike some of our old friends, he climbed down the wall, his color shifting with every movement. For a moment, he vanished completely, then reappeared beside Mother Ma. The human world taught me things, he said. Pain, hunger, silence, and the wonderful truth that children are even easier to break than they are to scare. Sully lunged, but Roz grabbed his arm. Randall smiled wider. Careful, Sullivan. You built a company on laughter, but you built it over a grave. The grave is opening. Behind Randall, the pink door rattled. From the other side came a child's soft breathing. Mother Ma inhaled deeply. Her body shook with need. Sully saw the truth then. These monsters were not just cruel. Some were terrified. Some were barely alive. Their fear of death had become hunger, and hunger had become worship. Randall had given them a purpose. He had told them they were victims. He had told them they deserved to feed. He had told them the children owed them screams. The pink door flew open. Mother Ma surged forward. Sully moved faster. He slammed into her with the full force of his enormous body, throwing her away from the door. The impact cracked the concrete. Mother Ma shrieked, not with fear, but rage. The sound rolled across the hunger floor and made the pipes scream in answer. The other monsters erupted. Some climbed the walls. Some dragged themselves forward on broken limbs. Some opened mouths that should not have fit inside their faces. The small, pale grub creature dropped from the ceiling toward Mike, jaws snapping. Mike screamed and rolled aside, the creature splattering onto the floor where he had been standing. Not edible, Mike yelled. Very not edible. Roz pulled a lever beside the elevator. Steel shutters began dropping over the doors. Randall hissed and vanished. Sully stood between the monsters and the pink door. Inside the child's room, a little girl stirred in bed. She never saw the blue monster in her doorway, fighting to keep worse things from reaching her. Mother Ma rose from the cracked floor. One of her bone plates had broken. Beneath it, her skin was raw and pulsing. She laughed, a low grinding sound. You cannot save them all. Sullivan. Sully looked around. Doors rattled everywhere. Hundreds of them. Some were already open. In the human world, the nightmare spread. A hospital in Chicago filled an entire ward with children who refused to sleep. Nurses reported that the children sometimes screamed in unison at exactly 3:17 in the morning. They described shapes in the corners of rooms, enormous figures that bent backward to fit beneath ceilings, tiny slick hands pressing against glass, teeth scraping along bed frames. One doctor recorded a session with a boy named Daniel. The boy sat very still in a white room, hands folded in his lap. The doctor asked him what he saw. Daniel said, "The door people." The doctor asked what they wanted. Daniel said, "They are hungry." The doctor asked what they ate. Daniel began crying without changing expression. Me being afraid, he said. They eat me being afraid. They drink it until I feel empty. Some children recovered enough to speak, but not enough to return to normal life. They flinched at hinges. They counted doors in every building. They slept outside closets with chairs wedged under handles. A few grew older and still carried the terror like a hook in the ribs. They became adults who never lived in houses with wardrobes, who covered mirrors, who needed every room lit at night. One girl, after years of treatment, described the worst part. It was not that the monster came into my room, she told her therapist. It was that it knew exactly what face to wear. It knew my nightmares before I did. In Monstropolis, Sully ordered the hunger floor sealed. But sealing it was not simple. The hunger monsters had supporters. They were not all hidden below. Some worked upstairs. Some laughed at jokes on the comedy floor while secretly drying out, their skin cracking beneath uniforms. Some had families. Some were beloved neighbors. Some had never harmed anyone, but could feel death crawling through their bones. The city divided. The newspapers called it a medical crisis. The old scarers called it betrayal. Mike stood on stage at a company meeting, trying to explain that no child should suffer, so a monster could live. A voice shouted from the crowd, "Easy for you, you do not starve." Another voice cried, "My brother is dying." A third voice hissed, "Bring back screams." Celia May, Mike's girlfriend, sat in the front row with her snakes coiled tight around her face. Even they looked frightened. George Sanderson stood near the wall, his orange fur patchy from stress. Needleman and Smitty whispered beside the trash compactor, eyes darting toward the exits. Sully raised his hands. "I know you are scared," he said. "I know some of you are hurting, but we cannot go back to hurting children." The lights flickered. Every door in the factory shook at once. A whisper came through the intercom. It sounded like Randall. "Then we will go forward." The emergency shutters slammed shut. The factory went dark. Screams rose from below. Not human screams. Monster screams. The hunger floor had broken open. They came up through vents, elevators, stairwells, and service shafts. The first to reach the laugh floor was the giant gray slit-mouthed monster. It crawled from an elevator shaft, unfolding itself limb by limb. Its head scraped the ceiling. Its vertical mouth opened down its torso, revealing rows of huge teeth slick with blood from its own torn gums. It exhaled, and the smell made workers gag. Behind it came the smaller ones, slime crawlers no larger than bobbies, with glassy eyes and mouths filled with thorn-like teeth. Tall, bent creatures, with antlers made of bone and skin, stretched between them like rotting sails. Monsters, with scars carved into their faces in ritual patterns. Monsters whose tongues were long and black and split at the ends. Monsters whose backs were covered in old scream canister valves. Metal fused into flesh, from years of illegal feeding. They surged through the factory, not attacking workers at first, but rushing toward the door vault. Mike climbed onto a desk and shouted, "Everybody stay calm." A slime crawler leaped at him. Mike screamed and smacked it with a clipboard. Everybody panic responsibly. Sully charged through the chaos, knocking creatures aside, roaring with a force that shook dust from the ceiling. For the first time in years, his old scarer roar returned. It was deeper now, sadder. He hated using it, hated feeling the power of fear ripple through the room. Some workers froze. Some hunger monsters turned toward him with shining eyes. They could smell it, even monster fear. Randall appeared above the door vault controls. His camouflage flickered badly, as if hunger had damaged the ability. Half his body blended with the wall, half remained visible, purple-gray and scarred. "Open the vault," he called. Fungus stood near the control panel, shaking. He had once been Randall's assistant, nervous and loyal, but prison and guilt had changed him. His red skin was paler now. His 3 eyes moved in different directions. "Randall," Fungus pleaded, "do not do this." Randall's expression twisted. "You always did like begging." Fungus reached for the emergency lock. Randall's tail lashed out, knocking him across the floor. Sully roared and leaped toward the balcony. Randall vanished. The door vault opened. Thousands of doors hung in darkness. Every door led to a child. Every hunger monster turned toward them. For one terrible second, the laugh floor fell silent. Then the doors began to move. Not in orderly lines. Not by schedule. They spun wildly on their rails, slamming into place, opening and closing, flashing glimpses of bedrooms across the human world. Moonlit nurseries, messy rooms, bunk beds, toy shelves, posters, sleeping children, and the monsters entered. Sully grabbed the nearest creature, a tall bone-antlered thing, and hurled it away from a yellow door. Mike and Celia worked together at the control panel, trying to shut down the rails. Roz barked orders into an old emergency transmitter. George Sanderson carried injured workers away, while Needleman and Smitty tried to block doors with trash bins. But too many opened. Too many rooms were touched. A small, slimy monster slipped into a room with blue wallpaper and crawled beneath a bed. It had no bones, only a sack-like body full of shifting lumps. Its mouth opened sideways across its belly. It did not bite the child. It did something worse. It whispered every fear the child had ever hidden. "Your parents will leave. The dark is full. The door will open again." The child woke screaming. The monster drank the sound through the pores in its skin, swelling with each sob. In another room, a giant with broken horns squeezed halfway through a closet, unable to fit completely. Its skin was covered in old scars, some stitched shut, some oozing. Its teeth were massive and uneven, jutting from its jaw like cracked tombstones. It stared at the boy in the bed, and smiled until the boy stopped breathing for a moment from sheer terror. In another, Mother Maw entered a nursery and stood over a crib, her spiraled teeth turning slowly inside her mouth. The baby woke, saw only a shape too large for the room, and began crying. Mother Maw trembled as the fear hit her. Her wounds closed slightly. Her heart beat stronger. Tears ran down her monstrous face. "I am sorry," she whispered, but she did not leave. That was the horror Sully could not escape. Not every monster enjoyed it. Some did. Some laughed as children screamed. Some licked fear from the air. Some scratched symbols into bedroom walls. Some left claw marks on doors so children would know they had been real. But others fed with shame. They shook. They cried. They apologized. They told themselves it was necessary. And still the children suffered. Sully found Randall in the old testing room. The scream extractor was there. It should have been destroyed years earlier. Instead, someone had rebuilt it. It stood taller now, more elaborate, made from black metal and old door parts. Tubes hung from it like veins. Its chair was empty, but the restraints were polished. Canisters lined the walls, each one filling with dark red energy instead of the old pale scream power. Fear concentrate, pure hunger fuel. Randall stood before it like a priest before an altar. "You see," he said as Sully entered, "no more pretending, no more jokes, no more begging children to laugh at clowns and pratfalls. This is what monsters are." Sully's fur bristled. "No." Randall turned. "No," he spat. "You were the best scarer alive. You stood over beds and roared until children cried. Do not act clean because you changed the menu." Sully took a step forward. "I was wrong." Randall's face tightened. "And that fixes it. That saves them. That saves us." He gestured to the canisters. "The hunger monsters are not a mistake, Sullivan. They are proof. Monsters were built from fear. You cannot laugh your way out of nature." Sully looked at the machine. A child's drawing was taped to one side. Boo's drawing. A blue monster. A green monster. A little girl. His chest tightened. Randall saw him looking and smiled. "I found her door." Sully went still. Randall's voice softened, becoming poisonous. "She is older now, not so little, but she remembers you. Deep down, she remembers the closet. She remembers the world behind it." Sully's claws dug into the floor. Randall continued. "Imagine her fear when she learns her kitty was never the worst thing in the dark." Sully attacked. They crashed through the testing room, smashing canisters and machinery. Randall vanished and reappeared, clawing at Sully's back. Sully slammed him into pipes. Randall wrapped his tail around Sully's throat and hissed in his ear. "You cannot save Boo. You cannot save any of them." Sully grabbed Randall by the tail and threw him through the scream extractor. The machine shrieked. Tubes snapped. Dark red fear sprayed across the floor in steaming puddles. Randall rose from the wreckage, shaking, covered in fear concentrate. His pupils expanded. His body convulsed. The concentrate soaked into his wounds, and he grinned with sudden strength. "Oh," he whispered, "that is better." His jaw stretched wider than it should have. His teeth lengthened. His camouflage flickered through colors that did not exist in ordinary light. Scars tore open along his sides, but instead of weakening him, they split into tiny mouths that whispered in stolen children's voices. Sully stepped back. Randall had fed too much. He was changing. His limbs elongated. His spine cracked upward. His tongue darkened and split. His eyes multiplied, small wet eyes opening along his forehead, neck, and shoulders. Each one focused on Sully with hatred. Mike burst into the room, carrying a fire extinguisher. He stopped. He stared. "Okay," Mike said faintly. Randall got uglier. Randall moved faster than sight. He knocked Mike aside and pinned Sully beneath one clawed hand. The tiny mouths in his scars whispered, "Kitty." Sully froze. Boo's voice. Randall laughed. The door behind him activated. It was white with painted flowers. Boo's door, not rebuilt from memory. The real one. Somehow Randall had found another way in. The door opened. A bedroom waited beyond it. Older now, different. A human girl's room, no longer a toddler's room. Books on shelves, a desk, a small lamp, a closet. On the wall, half hidden near the bed, was a faded child's drawing. Blue fur, purple spots. Sully stopped breathing. A teenage girl sat up in bed. Her eyes widened. She saw Sully. For one impossible second, her face softened with recognition. "Kitty," she whispered. Then she saw Randall. She screamed. Not a child's scream, not exactly. Something older, cracked by memory and horror. The sound tore through the room and into the factory, slamming into every canister, every pipe, every hunger monster. They all turned. The scream was powerful, too powerful. It was fear mixed with betrayal. Boo remembered enough to love Sully, and now she was terrified of the world he came from. Sully roared, throwing Randall off him with strength born of desperation. Mike scrambled to the control panel and slammed buttons with both hands. "Close the door," Sully shouted. Boo stared from the other side, trembling. Sully stepped toward her. He wanted to explain. He wanted to say he was sorry. He wanted to tell her that the monster in her closet had loved her enough to change his whole world. But Randall crawled up the wall behind him. Mother Ma appeared in the doorway of the testing room, drawn by the scream. Other hunger monsters gathered behind her, eyes shining, mouths wet. They saw Boo. They smelled fear. Sully placed himself in front of the door. "No one touches her." Mother Ma lowered her head. "You would let us die. I would find another way." "There is no other way." Sully looked at her. There, beneath the gore, scars, teeth, and hunger, he saw exhaustion. He saw centuries of monsters born into bodies that demanded suffering from others. He saw the terrible unfairness of it. But he also saw Boo behind him, shaking in her bed, and all the other children who had been made to carry nightmares that did not belong to them. "Then we end this," Sully said. Roz's voice crackled through the intercom. "Sullivan, the main door core is overloaded. If you reverse the flow, it will pull every active door back into the vault and burn out the system." Mike looked at Sully. "If we do that," Mike said slowly, "we lose access to the human world." Roz answered, "All access." The room went quiet, except for Randall's ragged breathing. Sully looked through Boo's door. Boo looked back at him. She was crying silently now, not because of Randall, because she understood goodbye when she saw it. Sully's voice broke. "I am sorry." Boo pressed a hand to her side of the doorway. Sully pressed his paw to his side. For a moment, the years disappeared. Then Mike pulled the lever. The factory screamed. Every door in Monsters Incorporated began to shake. The rails sparked. The vault roared like a storm. Across the human world, closet doors slammed shut. Bedroom doors locked. Wardrobes groaned. Children sat upright in bed as a wind passed through their rooms, cold and smelling faintly of fur, dust, and something ancient being dragged away. On the hunger floor, monsters howled as doors ripped from their claws. Some tried to hold on. The giant gray slit-mouthed creature wrapped all 7-fingered hands around a door frame, but the reverse pull tore it backward, its teeth clacking in panic. Slime crawlers were sucked through vents. Bone-antlered monsters clawed at the floor, leaving deep grooves in the concrete. Randall shrieked and lunged for Boo's door. Sully caught him. They struggled as the door began to close. Randall's many eyes bulged. "You will kill us," Randall screamed. Sully held him back. "No," Sully said. "I am stopping you." Mother Moss stumbled toward the door, reaching past them. Her face twisted with hunger and grief. Boo's screams still hung in the air like a feast she could not touch. Then Boo did something none of them expected. She stopped screaming. She looked at Mother Ma, at the scars, at the blood dripping from ruined gums, at the shaking claws, at the monster who had terrified children because her own body was betraying her. Boo whispered, "I'm not yours." The fear broke. The energy vanished. Mother Ma collapsed to her knees. The hunger monsters screamed as the door core overloaded. Light filled the testing room. Randall clawed at Sully's face, but Mike slammed the fire extinguisher into Randall's head with a battle cry that was mostly panic. Randall fell backward into the broken scream extractor. The machine sparked. Tubes wrapped around him like snakes. His many mouths screamed in stolen voices. The last thing Sully saw before Boo's door closed was Boo's hand still pressed to the wood. Then the door vanished into fire. The explosion did not destroy Monsters Incorporated. It gutted it. The door vault burned for 3 days. The laugh floor collapsed into the hunger floor. Old files turned to ash. Ancient machinery melted. Pipes burst and poured black residue into the drains. The scream canisters shattered one by one, releasing years of stolen terror into the air. Workers said they heard children crying in the smoke. Randall Boggs was never found. Some claimed he died in the scream extractor, burned away with the last of the fear concentrate. Others said they saw something thin and purple-gray crawl into a crack beneath the factory before the fire crews arrived. Something with too many eyes. Something laughing in voices that were not his own. Mother Moss survived. So did many hunger monsters. But after the door core burned, they could no longer reach human children. At first, they suffered terribly. Their bodies weakened. Their teeth loosened. Their scars reopened. Some begged for the doors to return. Some cursed Sully's name. Some withered into quiet things that lay in hospital beds beneath dim lights, trembling at the sound of laughter because it reminded them of what they could never eat. Sully did not abandon them. That surprised everyone. He funded research. He opened clinics. He sat beside monsters who hated him and listened as they described hunger like knives under their skin. Celia May organized care teams. George Sanderson volunteered for night shifts. Fungus, out of guilt and courage, helped destroy the remaining fear concentrate records. Roz oversaw everything, watching with tired eyes as Monstropolis tried to become something better than its origins. Mike struggled most of all. He had built his life around making others laugh. Now, he visited hospital wards where monsters could not laugh without pain. He told jokes anyway, softer ones, not for energy, but for comfort. One night, he sat beside a tiny slime creature named Merc, the same one once found, starving in the vents. Merc was almost transparent now, barely alive. Mike said, "So, a one-eyed monster walks into a cafeteria and orders soup." Merc blinked slowly. Mike waited. Merc made a small bubbling sound. It was almost a laugh. Not enough to feed a city. Enough to prove something remained. As for the children, the human world never knew the truth. The hospitals called it a wave of night terrors. The therapists called it closet trauma. The parents called it the worst months of their lives. Some children healed. Some did not. Some grew older and forgot the details, but never the feeling. A few became doctors, artists, writers, researchers of sleep disorders. They spent their lives chasing shadows in the mind, never knowing the shadows had names. One young woman kept a faded drawing in a locked box. A blue monster, a green monster, a little girl. She sometimes dreamed of a door covered in flowers. In the dream, she heard a voice on the other side, deep and gentle, saying sorry again and again. She never opened the closet after dark. Years later, Monstropolis rebuilt the factory, not as Monsters Incorporated, The name was changed. The old sign came down in pieces. Sully stood in the street and watched cranes remove the letters. Mike stood beside him, unusually quiet. "You think we did the right thing?" Mike asked. Sully looked at the place where the door vault had been. "I think we did the only thing we could." Mike nodded. Above them, the city lights flickered, not with scream power, not even with laughter alone anymore. Monstropolis had learned to use other energy, slower energy, kinder energy. It was harder, less efficient, less magical. But it did not require a child to wake screaming in the dark. That night, Sully returned home. His apartment was quiet. The closet door was still there. Ordinary, plain, closed. He stood before it for a long time. Then he heard something. Not scratching, not whispering. A soft knock. Once, twice. Sully's heart lurched. He reached for the handle, then stopped. The door had no power, no connection, no reason to make a sound. The knock came again, from very far away. Sully whispered, "Boo." Silence. Then another voice answered. Thin, ragged, smiling in the dark. "Kitty." Sully stepped back. The closet handle began to turn by itself, and somewhere beneath the ruined foundation of the old factory, in a crack where the fire had never reached, something with purple-gray skin opened all of its eyes. It had been hungry for a long time. It had learned to live on echoes. It had learned that fear did not need doors, only memories. So when the closet opened a finger's width, and the room filled with the smell of wet scales, old scars, and blood-dark hunger, Sully finally understood the last secret of Monsters Incorporated. The doors had never been the monster's way in. They had only been the easiest way. The real doors were the ones fear left inside you. And once a monster found those, it could always come back. Before you sleep tonight, check the closet if you must. Check under the bed. Check the hallway. Tell yourself that doors are only wood, hinges, handles, and shadow. Tell yourself monsters are stories. Tell yourself fear cannot feed anything. Then listen carefully, because if something in the dark whispers your name in a voice you remember from childhood, do not answer. Do not move. Do not scream. It is already starving, and it knows exactly which door inside you to open. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, comment, and like the video for more. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so divine. Whispers of